Portion of this video is sponsored by Bamboo Labs. So it's been nearly 18 years since the first iPhone was released. So in that time, we've seen 16 different major versions. We've heard the words magical and the best over and over again. Since the beginning, I have reviewed every single model. But this year, I can't do it. In fact, I returned the iPhone 16 Pro, then ended up here. Here's why. Apple keynotes back in the day were like kind of this magical thing. Like you didn't know what was gonna get announced. Steve Jobs took the stage, and usually what they ended up showing us, something new that we hadn't seen before. More recently, it seems like Apple is spending more time on their admittedly very cool sort of transitions in the keynotes and less time focusing on the phones. Hey, will you take a picture for me?
Yeah, sure.
Mind frame?
Yep.
It's like Apple's gone in the mobile space from really like rapidly innovating with new and innovative designs, and they changed to kind of iterating and refining what they had. There's a reason that this year's phone looks pretty similar to the phone that came out 4 years ago.
I gotta stop saying yes to taking pictures.
But there was always like a fallback. If you didn't like the design, like at least the ecosystem is rock solid. Or like it felt a little bit stale, you don't like the colors this year, whatever it might be, at least the camera was awesome. That kind of brings us to the iPhone 16, where it's hard to say what the fallback is, because this year's phone is incomplete. Did you get any good shots?
No, was I supposed to?
That's okay, thanks. It's not like the iPhone 16 or 16 Pro is a bad phone. It's a pretty amazing at a lot of things. It's just that what got added this year isn't much different than what was added last year, and a lot of things that were promised are still either incomplete or polarizing. But I'll get to what's missing from this phone, but I want to, just for a second, talk about what I think is on most people's minds. What's the deal with camera control? So like, kind of like a serious question. For those that have an iPhone 16 Pro or Pro Max or even iPhone 16, are you using like camera control? Like what are you like using it for? Do you think it's more useful than the action button? I don't know if I'm in the majority or the minority. First of all, I forgot that it was there pretty much, but I am very rarely using it and I'm not finding that much utility. As far as pushing it in and scrolling to change the focal lengths and zoom, I'm so used to doing it on screen, it's muscle memory, that I'm not spending the time to kind of relearn it. But like something like the action button, I use all the time and it's got sort of more flexibility and variability. I think it'd be really cool to sort of be able to use camera control like an action button. Let you be able to control it, the camera if you want, or set certain actions if I press it or double press it, long press it. I think that would be the awesome amount of like user control. You can choose how you use the buttons on your phone. Battery life, I think, is probably one of the most important aspects of a phone, but it's also like 100% the most like subjective thing out there, right? If I'm having bad battery life, maybe it's because like my third-party apps that I'm using aren't as efficient, whereas maybe you're not using them and your battery life is absolutely amazing. I can only really speak to sort of my experience with the phone and how I use it. And I've always came from like the bigger iPhone. Ever since like the iPhone 6 Plus, I've always had the big one. I like bigger phones and I like having the biggest battery possible. With the 16 Pro line, I figured it got bigger. It went from 6.1 to 6.3. A 6.9 inch phone just seemed too big. And the phones all had bigger batteries anyway. And allegedly, battery life in the 16 Pro is as good as it was in the 15 Pro Max. So I went for the smaller phone. Actually, I got used to the size really quickly. But within the first like 4 days, I realized I made a mistake when it came to battery life. I could not comfortably get through a full day. And by comfortably, I mean end of the day, I'd have maybe 15% battery life left. And I'm the kind of person, when I get below 50, I get like anxious. Got to the point where anytime I would go somewhere, if I was in a long car ride, I was bringing along a MagSafe battery pack just to make sure I could get through the day. I had to change how I was using the phone for battery life. And granted, that is probably due to my third-party app usage. Like TikTok was an absolute battery drainer. And if you're on that a lot, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then I'm sure your battery life has been fine, because I'm looking at 3 people right here who have iPhone 16 Pros and say battery life has been absolutely solid for them. So I made the switch. I went back to the Apple store and I returned my 16 Pro and switched to a 16 Pro Max. And the experience has been the exact opposite. Battery life has been incredible with the Pro Max. It is hands down the best battery life I have ever had on a phone. End of the day, I'm regularly at about 40% battery life. I don't think about using my phone or how I'm using it. I just go about and use it. And I know at the end of the day, it is going to give me enough juice. And again, I know battery life is totally subjective, but if you are on like third-party social media apps a lot and you're considering which phone to get, I think it's gonna be worth it to go the Max. I always come back to like, what's pro about Apple's like pro devices when it comes to the 16 Pro and Pro Max? Like, what's pro here? I think the answer is the same thing that it's been really since the past couple years. Being able to sort of shoot raw photos is incredible. Being able to shoot ProRes video is awesome. I don't use it all the time, but that does separate the phone lines kind of in my head. Video here is still absolutely best in class. There's a reason movies are being filmed on these things. There's a big difference from last year's Pro phone to this year, and that's the 5x zoom that was ordinarily only on the 15 Pro Max is now also on the 16 Pro. So you don't have to get the giant phone if you want the max zoom. And I don't want this video to come across as negative because these are still really incredible phones. The camera quality is outstanding. And almost every picture I take, no matter the light, no matter what time of day, I might not be the best photographer, but it makes me look good. And I don't want to get too much into specs here and megapixels. Just everything that I've taken with the phone is some version of good to great on that scale. And if you want really still the best camera experience for every scenario, there are some cameras that are better for particular scenarios. The iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max are still really hard to beat. There's a lot of other things that make it unique. Like the screen is a really big one. So they're up 0.2 inches from last year. So from 6.1 to 6.3 on the Pro and 6.7 to 6.9. 6.9 sounds like a really freaking big phone, and it is. It's a little tablety, but it doesn't feel that much bigger than any of the Pro Max line that came before, if that like helps sway you. Screen specs are nothing really different than previous years. It's still a really good screen, but again, it goes back to the point of like, still not that much better or different than last year's phone. One like under the radar feature that isn't getting as much love, I think, is Wi-Fi 7. I have Wi-Fi 7 in my house, and I have noticed significant differences in Wi-Fi speeds here. So if that's something that, again, it's kind of in the weeds, but if that's something that matters to you, then I think you'll really appreciate it here. Are you rolling? Okay. It's like the iPhone's always been like one of my favorite things. My actual favorite thing right now is that, and this is no joke, this is sponsored by Bamboo Labs. I would pay Bamboo Labs to talk about their printers. I have gone nuts in 3D printing, and Bamboo Labs makes the best 3D printers going. In fact, I love Bamboo Labs so much, I've gone and used every single one of the printers. We did a video earlier on the A1. One we have at the studio here is the P1S with the AMS on top of it. It's got all the different colors, so you can print multiple color things. At home, I have the X1 Carbon. The app is so good, it integrates with Maker's World, so you can pick from it, thousands of files, and literally just like hit print, and it's there. I made things that are really useful. I made like trash cans for my car and my wife's car. I made little kind of caddies for the bathroom. I made my son a Deadpool mask for Halloween. Even going viral right now is a little Mac mini case that makes it look like a Mac Pro. Probably my favorite thing I made. I even printed this. Meow meow, meow 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 meow. 3D printing is not hard with Bamboo. You don't need to know how to engineer. I don't have to level anything. I literally just hit print and it does everything for me. And this is the best time of the year to get into 3D printing. From October 21st to December 2nd, pretty much everything is on sale. The X series, one I have at home, which I think is like the perfect 3D printer, depending on like what version you get with some accessories, either 200, 250 bucks off. The P series that we have here, you can get 50 bucks off the P1P and the P1S, $100 off the P1SC, and also you get a mystery blind box gift filled with accessories or consumables when you buy. And the most affordable of all the Bamboo Labs machine, the A1 Mini and the A1 Mini C, there aren't discounts going on, but they will throw in a free serve spare parts gift with you, so anything that you might need or want to change out on your machine, that should be there. You're getting incredible machines at incredible prices, I think, really anyway. If you want to check out any of Bambu Labs' early Black Friday page to get the biggest deals of the year, the link you will need down below. And again, I want to reiterate, I love Bambu Labs. I cannot say it enough. If you want to get into 3D printing, get a Bambu Labs machine. You will not regret it. This is one of the first times in a while. Like, I didn't know like when to make this video. Usually with phones, like you'll see reviews trickle out like a week later, 1 month later, 6 weeks later, the random like 73 and a quarter days later. With the iPhone 16 Pro though, like it's weird, right? It's not complete. Apple Intelligence is starting to trickle out very like piecemeal. And we're starting to get the full vision of what Apple sort of wants the 16 Pro line to be and the iPhone 16 line to be. But like, it's not there yet. And like if I made a typical iPhone 16 Pro review video a week later, the first chapter would have been like, it's not here, right? There was nothing really of Apple Intelligence that was in there. 18.1 hit, we got kind of like a real small piece of the Apple Intelligence pie. Siri looks new. She's not that much smarter yet. We have other sort of smarter things that are happening in the background that are setting the stage for what's ultimately gonna come with 18.2. When you get things like Genmoji and Image Playground, and sort of we can start to see more AI smarts and the groundwork's being laid for Siri to be contextually aware. And that is sort of the big vision, and I think the big differentiating factor of Apple Intelligence is sort of this aware of what you're doing on your screen, artificial intelligence. We've seen AI make pictures before. We've seen AI make pretty much everything. It's nice and it's still novel, but like, it's not that crazy. So when you look now at the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max and the 16, it's tough to evaluate this phone. Especially tough to say like, this is a phone that's worth it. Are you in the camp where you're willing to evaluate something based on what it's going to be? Or are you gonna evaluate it based on what it is? And if you're evaluating it based on what it is, the iPhone 15 Pro is increasingly becoming a better option. If it can be found for a deal, it's gonna get all the same Apple Intelligence features that are coming to the 16 lineup, presumably at like a fraction of the price. And because the book's not written, it's kind of why that this review is like chaptered. It has to be chaptered, right? This is chapter 1 of the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro story, because the book still is not yet written and we don't know what this is going to be. I might be pessimistic on AI, but once I see contextually aware AI, that might be like a mind-blowing change your opinion on everything. And Apple's put a lot of money and a lot of time, and certainly a bunch of advertising, to make us think it's going to be the real deal. So maybe the next chapter of the iPhone 16 Pro is gonna be the one where you can say, this is the phone you should get. But chapter 1, it's hard to recommend. I don't wanna like harp too much on Apple. This is not like generally a hugely new thing where features are announced and rolled out like gradually. We've seen it on the Pixel side. We've seen a ton in video games, a lot, even video game hardware. Even we see it in cars when like, hey, buy this car, self-driving will come eventually. So it's not like a new concept, but it's so hard and becoming increasingly hard to like trust these companies to deliver on what they're saying. And maybe I'm skeptical, maybe I've been burned in the past, but it's a tough sell to buy something for what it's going to be, instead of evaluating it like for what it is. And like everything about the 16 Pro is relatively boring down to the colors. And this is not a video on the iPhone 16, which I have different opinions on. I think the 16 Apple actually nailed. They got all the good colors. The 16 Pro colors are dumb, boring. And it kind of gets you thinking like, is the 17 gonna be the phone? Are we gonna be in these things again? Is like, oh, we need to wait for iOS 19.3 to get the latest Apple Intelligence features. So now we gotta wait until January of 2026 for the 17 to get what it's going to be. Is it gonna be the same formula year over year? We don't know. I gotta think this is a little bit embarrassing for Apple to be out there advertising all these features that don't exist. For people who are gonna go out and buy a new iPhone thinking their phone is going to do all these things that it doesn't do yet because they saw it in a commercial. So I gotta think that by the time we get to next year's phone, this is not going to be like a trend that continues. but I'm not willing to give Apple the benefit of the doubt. And like, I don't want to come across as negative towards the iPhone 16 Pro because it is still the greatest iPhone Apple has ever made. And in that frame, it is still an unbelievable device for what it can do. It just doesn't do anything that much better than what came before it. The cameras are really good. They're just not that much better than what came before. The screen is great, almost no difference than what came before. Battery life stands alone as incredible and epic, and I love it. And if there's ever reason to get the 16 Pro Max, the battery life is going to be it. But there's just not that many things that separate it yet. And that's why this is just chapter 1. I'm really curious about what chapter 2 of the iPhone 16 Pro review is going to be. Maybe chapter 3, chapter 4, however many chapters we need to get the full volume of the iPhone 16 Pro, I'm excited to make. And I want to see this grow and evolve into what Apple wants it to be and really see if it ever gets there.